It's quiz time again.
Oh boy.
I'd like to do this. So, a young boy lost his father when he was 6 years old. His mother had to go to work because there was no other way to support the family. You're going to tell me who it is when you recognize it. That's the quiz. She went to work in a tomato cannery, and this young boy was left to take care of the other siblings, younger than himself. And he learned to cook and make meals, actually kind of liked it, and he became skilled at baking and cooking. And life went on. And a stepfather came into the picture, and it didn't work very well in terms of family function. And he left home very early. He quit school in the 7th grade, went to work on a farm. This young boy, as he became a young man, went through a series of different work experiences. You might say he had a checkered work. I thought I had a checkered work experience, but when I looked into his background, he really had a checkered work experience. Because from farmhand, he went to conductor on the railroad and fireman on the railroad. He went in the Army. After that, he became a salesman, an insurance salesman. After that, he owned a motel, which burned down, of course. And he rebuilt it, and a large restaurant. And that love for cooking that began early showed up in this 140-seat restaurant. Anybody got it yet? Well, he had a special procedure. Ooh. Now you can see me, all of me? Thank you. Thank you, Rick. He had a special procedure for cooking and some special recipes that he developed over time. You might, do you have it, Debbie?
I don't know. I'm taking Colonel Sanders.
You got it exactly. Finger licking good. That chicken was finger licking good. But his career journey didn't end. A number of other jobs, secretary for a chamber of commerce and other jobs in sales just so he could get by. And eventually, at the age of 65, I'm a little older than that, but at that age of 65, which is pretty well up in years, Colonel Sanders went on the road, and on the road to franchise his finger-looking good chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken. He had been through a lot, and he persevered, and as you know, it was very successful. Colonel Sanders, an example of when you're down, you're not out. He was down a lot of times. He was broke a lot of times. He failed a lot of times, but he was not out. So we're going to look at that in our context today. But Colonel Sanders is an example to give us a start. We'll talk about freedom, of course, freedom being our choice, freedom in the midst of adverse circumstances. And Colonel Sanders had a lot of adverse circumstances. The freedom to respond and to choose how to respond, and the freedom to look at things differently from a different perspective. So let's jump into it. I put together a key spiritual truth. Responding to the challenge of adversity sets us free. Adversity feels awful most of the time, maybe different levels of awful, but adversity is not something that's comfortable. One of the great examples in the Hebrew scriptures of adversity is a man named Job. You might remember the story of Job. Job was a wealthy, prosperous prophet of God for both Islam and Christianity. But he lost everything. He lost his houses and his lands. He lost his family, even, every one. What a mess of adversity he was in. And the temptation was not to bless God as he had always done, but to curse God. Actually, he had three friends. Three friends told him, "What's wrong with you, Job? You must have done something to deserve this. Just curse God and die." Yeah. You know what?
Great friends.
He didn't follow his friends' advice. Not at all. And he endured despite their counsel. Well, as you know, ultimately he is blessed more than he was before because of the perseverance, the endurance in a time of adversity. Remember in the Christian scriptures, the story of a man who was healed, and people asked, did this man sin, or did his parents sin? Is that why he's experiencing the adversity, the malady that he has? And the answer was, no, the picture's bigger than that. For the glory of God, or we might say, in order that the divine might be expressed in a unique way. You're not down for the count when you've experienced adversity, no matter how much or how serious it seems to be. You, in fact, have options. You have options with regard to your response to the circumstance. Rather than being a victim to the circumstance, you can be responsible, and I use that word, able to respond. Responsible, even in a time of great adversity. You don't have to abdicate your ability to respond. You, in fact, may look for an opportunity, as Rick told us in the Saturday Soul Boost yesterday, a calling, even in that adversity. You remember you probably heard this, the Chinese character for crisis. Thank you, Donna, for making me remember that it was crisis. There are two characters in that. I learned to write Chinese characters once. I've totally forgotten. But there are two characters, and they're kind of pictographic. And long time people have been saying those two characters stand for danger and opportunity. Crisis equals danger plus opportunity. But it's more than that. It's more than just opportunity. The actual reason for that is the opportunity to change, to shift, to move in a different direction. It's not just an opportunity, suddenly a pot of gold lying there waiting for you. That key spiritual truth is responding to the challenge of adversity will set us free. I'd like to talk a little bit about the truth of adversity. Observations, and then three things I really feel strongly about with regard to adversity. Adversity may seem like a big wall that's preventing you from going where you want to go, getting what you want, having what you desire. You want the adversity to abate, to leave the scene, but you don't think too often about how you might respond to that adversity. Of course, you don't want to stay on the negative side of it. You know, the more that we hold a negative thought in our mind, the more we draw that to us. And it's very possible that we could go round and round and round in our adversity merely because we're thinking round and round about how we've suffered from it, how we can't do anything about it, how bad it is. So we don't want to stay on the negative side. And I think what takes us to the idea of saying, even in this adversity, what is it that I want for myself? Oh, yes, to be relieved of the adversity. But beyond that, what does my heart aspire to? What am I hungry for? And so we look at the positive side of it. We also look for what we know. Many of you are people who have a meditation practice. And in that meditation practice, or perhaps in another way, walking quietly in the woods or sitting by a stream, there's something that comes to you, almost an audible voice, or some of us an audible voice, but a voice within that says, this is true of you. This is your calling. This is your purpose. This is you. And you see yourself in a new light. So you have that desire, that heart's desire, and that knowing. Remember that desire is found in the heart and not in the head. It's not something we put together and manufacture, not something we rationally consider. It's something that comes from the heart. That voice of the divine within our intuitive self. About desire, Emily Cady was the first of the Unity writers. So in Unity, we look to her, and she has some profound wisdom in lessons in truth. And I know many of you have taken a look at that. So here's what she says about desire. And I love this theology of desire, or this understanding of desire. She says, desire in the heart is always God tapping at the door of your consciousness with his infinite supply. Let me say it again. God tapping at the door of your consciousness with his infinite supply. And then she goes on to say, desire is the thing you want in incipiency. That's not a very common word, but means the beginning of something. Desire is the beginning of something. We talked about how that Chinese character for opportunity, what really meant a change, a shift in perspective and in direction. The same is true when we hear it from Emily Cady. Circumstances are not as they seem to be because we see them with tunnel vision, a very small picture. And it's only that sometimes with some time we can step back and say, oh, I see a bigger picture. I see a reason for that when I couldn't. And even this is true in adversity. I see from that adversity something that has moved me along on my journey. And here's the three truths that I think I hold very firmly, and I'd like to share them with you. It's simple, and you've heard it before. This too shall pass. It's not permanent. It's not attached to you as a being. Whatever the situation and the circumstance, this too shall pass. Second truth, adversity opens up your life. It's a crucial point when something begins to change. It's a catalyst for moving you along on the journey, if you will allow it to be so. And truth number 3, I say this all the time, all things work together for good. Every little thing, every bit of diversity, yes, and adversity as well. That key spiritual truth, responding to the challenge of adversity, gives us freedom, sets us free. So we've looked a little bit at what could happen, looked a little bit at truth as we know it. And you have maybe a little slightly different expression of it. But then we go on to the point that we started with Colonel Sanders, perseverance. It's a remedy for that circumstance in which you find yourself mired. You're just mired. Instead of perseverance, sometimes we just give up. Just say, somebody else, something is doing this to me. I don't have any control of it. I give up. But we do have the freedom to respond. And that can only be done when we employ perseverance. That means not giving up too easily. Matter of fact, not giving up at all. Perseverance is defined as doing something despite difficulty or delay. Sometimes it's delayed in achieving success, or I would say achieving what your heart's desire. We have also, to accompany that perseverance, the wonderful inherent gift of the power of strength. Strength is the ability to endure, the ability to persist, the ability to stay the course, the ability to persevere. There's a story in the Hebrew Scriptures, the story of Moses and the children of Israel wandering in the wilderness. You remember that, 40 years wandering in the wilderness. At one point, they were confronted by an enemy. Remember, this is a story. We look for the truth in the story, not necessarily the exact words or progress of the story. The enemy was the Amalekites. And God told Moses, go on the precipice and hold up your arms. Moses did it. And Israel prevailed in the battle below. Moses got tired eventually and let his arms down. And the Amalekites prevailed. And he raised them again, and Israel prevailed. Nice story. But still he got tired, and somebody said, come on over here, sit on this rock. It'll be a little easier. And still his hands drifted earthward. Finally, his brother Aaron said, I'll hold your hand up. And somebody said, I'll hold this hand up. Perseverance doesn't mean you do it all by yourself. You, in fact, may need resources, and to employ those resources, you may be able to respond when you have those resources available to you. You know lots of examples of persistence and perseverance. Everything from the Holocaust survivors to Nelson Mandela in prison for 25 plus years, to someone in the Special Olympics who has prevailed and become expert even though they have a disability, if you would say an adversity to prevent them, but they prevailed. A climber who is blind, a mountain climber, learning how to climb through feel and sound, prevailing, persevering in adversity. Stephen Hawking, Alexei Navalny, persevering despite the adversity, taking the opportunity to respond to that adversity, probably as from inner direction. Just having that hunger, that desire from deep within the core of their being. Well, you know, you can be one of those too in your world. You can make sure you know what resources you have available. You can go ask somebody if you don't know. You then look to say, who will support me? Whose company should I seek? This is all part of that response. What input will I turn to? What will I read? What will I watch? What will I listen to? Resources to take our perseverance journey forward. But even more important, what thoughts do you choose? Did you know you choose your thoughts? Well, it defaults to your subconscious if you don't choose thoughts. So you get in that cycle, probably the cycle of retelling that story of adversity, but you have the opportunity to choose your thoughts. By the way, it takes some practice. We practice baseball and tennis, and we practice cooking. There's a multitude of things that we practice. But spiritual practice, do we do that? I have a theory. The theory is that many times when I have a heart's desire and I can define it, I can know what it is, I set a course to respond to that. And then after a while, I lose track of it. I have one particular thing that has come to my mind this week as I prepared. Something that I set a course on, just a little healing in my life on a physical level. And I would affirm again and again and again throughout the day, but I lost track of it. My theory is that you may well be 95% there, but you never get to that manifestation of what you desire because you give up. Or you just let it go by the wayside. Full responding to the challenges of adversity will be what sets us free. Tom, if you would put that slide up. Rick, there's somewhere back there's some handouts, half-page handouts. I want you to hand those out to people here. Sorry, I didn't ask you about that ahead of time. So we'll take just a moment. So we get to that point that I really like. How do I do that? You see it on the slide, not out even when you're down. And I want to hand you a handout if you're here in person. If you're with us virtually, take a screenshot of it or pull your camera out, your phone, and just take a quick picture of it. And then you'll have this because I think it will be helpful for you. I kind of look at it as ABCs. How do I do that? Number one, make adversity a course changer. Shift your focus from the old story. Adversity, A, there's an A in there. I don't have the bold on that screen, but that's the A in the ABC. You're going to have to change your course to respond to an adversity. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, or you'll keep getting the same result over and over again. Befriend the adversity. Oh, that sounds hard, but you can. You may even be able to embrace the diversity, knowing that beyond that is something that lifts you up, something that moves you forward. Make adversity a course changer in your life. And then B is be aware of the desires of your heart. For a long time, I didn't think I was aware of what my real true heart. I could figure out a lot of things and I had a lot of plans and a lot of ideas, but I didn't know the desires of my heart. They're only known in the quiet. That hunger that's within you surges forward and you can't mistake it. But if you don't spend time in the quiet, spend a little time walking in nature or sitting in meditation, you may not discover the desires of your heart. So as I often say, spend time in the silence. That's where you're going to know and with surety what the desires of your heart. And then you're going to go back to what Katie says. If the desire is there, the divine is ready with a supply to take care of it. It will be fulfilled if you persevere, if you hold the course. And that's the last one. Stay the course. Course is the seed. I don't need to say more than that. You know what it is. It takes a power of will and willingness to stay the course. It takes a great awareness to stay the course, because we can lose track of it. But practice it. Practice it like you'd practice golf or tennis or the piano. Stay the course. Back to where we started. Colonel Sanders, that desire first surfaced when he was 7 years old, cooking. The desire to express through his cooking something unique, something really grand. It took him, what, 58 years to get to where that happened? Long time. Perseverance, a lot of adversity. Remember the truth. Responding to the challenge of adversity sets us free. And so it is.